He will concentrate, he will present his paper on aspect of international law in devising a new constitution. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully everybody can hear me in a minute. A short while ago, Bipin Adhikari asked me to write a paper to present at this particular conference. His idea was, as the title of this presentation is addressed within the documentation, but I've actually looked at it from a slightly different point, in the sense that the paper, I've called it Reason, Passion and the Position of Politics, because I think that's where we're at in no uncertain terms. And I think it'll become evident as I go through my particular paper, which hopefully you'll be able to look at as I go along. However, one of the questions asked a short while ago is, what is my position within, if you like, academic life? It's very much that I'm an advisor to a lot of institutions, but equally my Member of Parliament. And looking at the first paragraph of my particular document, you'll notice that quite recently I was approached whether I would consider standing as a Member of Parliament in the general elections which are about to take place, because the Labour Party has been in power since 1997, as it has to do every 5 years. It has to hold a general election. And my Member of Parliament is standing down. I actually said, why are you asking me to stand as a Member of Parliament or as a parliamentary candidate? And they said, you know what you're doing. You understand the political institutions, you understand all about the rule of law. Equally, I specialise in European law. I'm an oddity in the... Nevertheless, I welcome this opportunity of speaking at this conference, because equally as I've said that Bipin asked me to do this paper, over the last 10 years, the period of time that I've known Bipin, I have watched, but obviously at a distance, those events that are happening here. And this particular point, in trying to look at the paper, I obviously took some quotes from various people, not least Winston Churchill, because I think this particular quote adequately reflects where you're at and where you are going. And if I may, what he said is, what is the use of living if it's not to strive for noble causes, and to make this muddled world a better place for those who live in it and after we are gone? Because one of the things that I think, not that people are forgetting, but people aren't quite remembering in the way that it is the Constitution, which hopefully will be agreed to in the foreseeable future, is not just for now. It is for the generations yet to come, hopefully. But there are a number of issues that obviously separate, but there are a number of issues which actually people agree to. The noble cause is the Constitution, and hopefully there will be an agreement in the foreseeable future, as I said. But the international community, in no uncertain terms, is watching what is happening. Evidence of that is the presence of the United Nations and visitations from members from the European Union, not least from Germany and elsewhere for that matter. The present forms of impasse are totally understandable. Has been seen in other countries, not least, as been mentioned by Professor Stephen Greer yesterday, Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland for the UK has been an area of problem for at least 30 years. And even now, in the last week, we still see problems emerging where there isn't agreement. But there is an agreement, a political accord, to keep things moving within that particular part of the United Kingdom as it chooses to be. But there are differences of opinion, political opinion, religious opinion. And don't forget, in order to move the process in Northern Ireland forward, it took the Irish government, and I'm talking of ERA as it was once called, but the part of Southern Ireland, to change its constitution. And I know parts of Liverpool where people who were Catholics would not walk on the same road, pavement and road, as a Protestant. And that is in the last 10 years. And even so, after decades of problems in Northern Ireland, and there are still problems, we are still unfortunately seeing dissident parts of the Irish Republican Army that will not agree to the peace process, will not give up arms, and occasionally show their disfavour towards the Irish government and elsewhere, and we're seeing deaths still yet occurring, and potential bombings. So just because an advanced democracy like the United Kingdom has tried to tackle its own internal problems, it still gets problems. But there is general agreement. One of the particular ones to take an issue in mainland Europe, and affected me directly, admittedly 20 years ago, walking home from work. I'm a former English police officer. Walking home from work one night, I happened to see some colleagues of mine who happened to be looking at certain vehicles, cars, and I said, "What's the problem?" And they said, "There's a bomb in a car around here," and it was very close to where I lived. The consequence of it, when I went home to see my wife, or to go home as such, was that they discovered the bomb, thankfully. But the consequence to my wife was, "That's enough. I'm going home." And she then promptly took our children up to the north of England, where eventually I moved. We have moved on from there, and now each state, including Nepal, when it does come to the conclusion of the constitutional process, it will become part of the norms of international law. What I'm going to talk about is obviously more so towards the European Union, but equally something that occurred quite recently. I have signed up to it in 1951, and we may have ratified it a couple of years later, but it took us until 1998 to include it within our constitution. Although we say it's unwritten, it's our constitution as such, as a working model. That, to me, its inclusion was the fact that we'd finally resolved a Bill of Rights. Many people, indeed, I brought a book with me by Dworkin saying about the Bill of Rights, which we don't theoretically have. And it is that why I say the inclusion of human rights into the proposed constitution for Nepal is setting down a Bill of Rights. But it's basic rights. Let's not mislead ourselves into believing that it is the answer to everything, but it is in part an answer. An answer, in my opinion, to the point that those that I almost find it offensive to say indigenous people, because I don't understand what that means. For us in the UK, we have 8 to 9% of, if you like, ethnic minorities, as we call them. Polite phrase, but those that originated from other countries, for that matter, and have chosen to live in the UK, become part of the life in the UK by their choice. And it doesn't matter which country that they've originated from. Obviously, we have those that came from the Caribbean, those that came from the former Commonwealth countries, which could include Nigeria, Kenya, etc. And more recent additions, and not least, those that have come from the area of the former Yugoslavia. So Lithuanians, Latvians, they're north of the former Yugoslavia, admittedly, but if you walk into a hotel in Manchester, you're likely to be served by somebody for coffee who is Latvian or Lithuanian or Bulgarian, not English, but to us it doesn't make a difference. It obviously matters if they speak English, because I wouldn't get my coffee, but that's another story. But coming to the particular point, to satisfy individual groupings, even within the United Kingdom, the Labour government, in its manifesto in 1997, promised to include the Human Rights Convention, which it did do. We are now 10 years later since it was introduced. 2010 is the decade after it was introduced into the UK. Does it mean to say that the average Englishman understands it? And the answer is no, because they do not understand what basic right means. And even my own brother-in-law last week said, "What are human rights?" And he classifies himself as intelligent. So if I have the problem within the UK of actually saying it, then of actually explaining what it means, how is it then going to be easy for others to understand within the constitutional document, when in actual fact it is the clearest set of basic rights anybody could ever have? History of the is not to be ignorant. It's basically, you know about the problems here, I don't know about it to the extent that I would like to do. But one thing is for sure, the bullet played a part. Don't forget, Northern Ireland, the bullet played a part, and it took time for that to be resolved. However, anyone who has reviewed the constitutional document cannot be impressed by its provisions. I am. I think it caters and sets out in clear and no uncertain terms what it is hoping to achieve. The individual mechanisms that each of the committees of the Constitutional Assembly are hoping to achieve are called the finer details. And when anybody's drawing up the finer details, what are you hoping to achieve when you know it's sensitive? Not least so than the previous presentation in the Regency Hall, in the Durbar Hall, listening to two women who were talking about the rights of women. Because we still have problems about the rights of women, because we've got people who still live in a past in terms of the Victorian age. And you are wanting, obviously, women to be recognised in the way that they should do. It takes time even in the UK. And all political parties has tried to get women to be members of Parliament. And yet we still can't do it. And we're an advanced democracy. So don't please forget that not every woman wants to be a politician. They don't want to be anything other than what they choose. What we give them is the opportunity. And Indigenous groupings may not also take up the opportunity of being part of the political system. It isn't necessarily that they're not interested. It may be that you've set up what they wanted, and that their rights are respected. It may not be by their own grouping, it may be by somebody else. But don't misunderstand sometimes the position of people who don't choose to be part of something, provided that the mechanisms that are being drawn up through the constitutional document become concrete in some particular way. I have a phrase, it's a saying, on my computer. It's a bit of a calendar I picked up 20 years ago. In fact, it was 1983, it's longer than that. It says the great born of common sense is compromise. Because unfortunately, there may need to be compromises. They're not particularly likeable, but sometimes compromise is a way through. Noticed that the Russian Federation, through its Prime Minister Medvedev, had recently signed up to the European Convention on Human Rights. I go to Moscow once a year. I've seen its changes. It's never reported outside of Moscow, the changes. But actually that was a valiant attempt to start moving things forward for a power that we still refer to as the Russian bear. The point is that even they have seen, from the standpoint of being a part of the international community, that human rights must play a part within their constitution. The European Union, though, has had a more troublesome time. Just to come to a particular point, and it is a sense of an issue of sensitivity, within the constitutional document there was disquiet mentioned about the issue of treaties. But equally on the international stage is, in order to sign something, there must be an indication of an acceptance of those, the rights that you are likely to bring into it. So there is an interplay there that needs to be at least considered. Let me come to the particular point now of the European Union itself, which is setting the norms of international law. The European Union covers 400 million people in excess, slightly more than actually the United States of America. That is 27, soon to be 28 states. And they reckon that in due course of time it may move to being 30. Therefore, what it has done, what it may do, will influence. One of the things that was said yesterday by one of the rapporteurs in the last group was talking about international law from the point of sovereignty, in the sense that we may discuss constitutions, but there are issues on the international stage which interfere with what we try to achieve and what we want to do. Not that we have no control of whatsoever, although we try, and certainly one of my reluctances to a change of government in the near future in the UK is I happen to think that the Labour government have a better grasp of the issues relating to the recession than their opposition. But come now to the former Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, if you look on under the heading there, became a kingdom in the 1918s. But following the Second World War, as we all know, it became a communist area. That, the other side of the Berlin Wall, that couldn't be controlled because it was a bloc, what we called politely the Eastern Bloc. But on with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the death of President Tito, things went wrong. And previous political factions then started to move in ways that the rest of Europe found uncomfortable because it impacted on us. Because, as you know, when there is conflict within a community, those not party to the conflict will move out. And what self because it had to. Because the point about it is if it wasn't dealt with in the way that it was adequate, we could have seen a movement of the conflict outside of the area of the former Yugoslavia, and that was unacceptable by any standards. So the reaction to it, and don't forget, it took time and it took a sensitive issue to be dealt with, but that said, it has played a significant part. There are still parts of that former area that has unrest, but not in any way, shape or form, such as was occurring during the 1990s. And what it does is it lists the various rights which should be accorded to indigenous people, and in a sense, I suppose, it's a replication of the convention recently signed in 2007, corresponding in a way with when the constitutional document was signed. Let me take what they say in brief. Human rights are universal: civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights belong to all human beings. It doesn't talk about indigenous groups in a separate way. It talks about them in the same way as you and I. Human rights are universal, including indigenous people. Every indigenous woman, man, youth, child is entitled to the realisation of all human rights and fundamental freedoms on equal terms with others in society. It doesn't qualify society, because societies are what you make them, or they already exist. But let me just clarify 3 human rights. In the Convention, we talk of absolute rights and conditional rights. Very simply put, it is this: the first 3 of the rights within the European Convention says the right to life, the right not to have your life taken away unless there is a legal decision. Well, if you look, there is a protocol to the European Convention where it means the death penalty no longer exists within any member state who has adopted the European Convention, and that includes the Russian Federation in the foreseeable future once the Duma, their parliament, adopts it. The border controls are not as effective as we would like them to be, and unfortunately they are found long after the times when we would prefer them to be, because most of those, which I am talking about, women, have come over to the UK in the hope of a better life, because they have the right to move, to work. But just taking a brief look of the others, because I've just been told I'm coming to the end of my time, and I don't want to overstay my welcome to say the least. But taking one other is the human right to full and effective participation in shaping decisions and policies concerning their group and community, which was the essence of the talk, or the talk in the Durbar room a few minutes ago. But just to move on so I don't transgress, we've not had a full separation of powers. I've listened to people that talk about the Westminster model as if it's a thing that's stopped working. It's never changed, it's never adapted, and yet we have. And what brought this about, not least, was our adoption of the Human Rights Act, which was a ratification, if you like, of bringing it into legislation, which made what was our House of Lords, the legal assembly, into our Supreme Court. But one particular participant here from Singapore, and whose name escapes me at the moment, happened to say, "Is you're becoming like America?" I said, thank God no, because America does not know how to play cricket. But moving on from the particular point, what is established is a clear separation of powers. What we are waiting for, and it is a political, if you like, an explosive point, is an elected assembly for the House of Lords. The Tory party, the potential Conservative government, does not want it. It would mean that we would have an elected House of Commons, an elected or semi-elected House of Lords, meeting the true separation of Parliament, separation of powers, I beg your pardon. But nevertheless, it is a proposal. The arrival of the Supreme Court means there is a clearer definition. But I do understand why the Westminster model cannot be transposed elsewhere. As Imran Khan, the famous cricketer, once said, "You've had the history, we haven't. How can you expect a Westminster model to work in our country when we haven't had the history?" So hopefully, coming to a particular point, just coming to the last page, hopefully, and I won't upset you. Surprise you. Neither the Welsh people or the Scottish people actually wanted them. And when it came to a referendum to adopt either, the referendums were a clinch, a cliffhanger. Try and take those away from them now. The Welsh Assembly, they'll not let you take it off them. The Scottish Parliament, it's theirs, and they want to keep it. But just coming to the final point, as Sujit Chowdhury mentioned in the presentation for which Professor Yashkai and others played, federalism doesn't guarantee democracy. It's not an inherently superior form of democracy, but it's a choice to be made. And if I can finish on the last point, you stand at a threshold. To me, the vision you have sets out a goal. The goal, as far as I see it, is not just for now. It is for you as now, but for those that are to come after. If you take into account the statement made by Winston Churchill, it is not just for now, it is for others yet to come. Thank you for that.
Give some insights on those issues as well as his own insight from the perspective of international Transparency International. So I would like to give floor to Professor Satya Arinanto. Yes?
Yes. Okay, we also have the same experience like Nepal, especially under the former original version of the 1945 Constitution, which is executive heavy constitution, and then unclear system of checks and balances, too many delegations to statute, ambiguous articles, too much dependent on political goodwill and integrity, legal vacuums, and there was also an elucidation to that constitution. And then, as noted from the Reformation era, there are some purposes of the constitutional amendment, i.e. to complete the basic norms of state structure and then people sovereignty, and then the third one, human rights, and then the fourth one, about the implementation of separation or division of powers. The fifth one, on the issue of social justice, as also discussed here since yesterday. And the sixth, about the existence of democratic state and state governed by law principle, Rechtsstaat. And the seventh one, based on people's need and aspirations. And then the People's Consultative Assembly, I will explain you later about one of the constitutional organ which has the power to amend the constitution. They reach the basic agreements. First, we will not amend the preamble. And second one, we will maintain the principle of unitary state. The third one, we will keep and clear the using of the presidential system. This is our experience. The fourth one, the elucidation section will be eliminated and some important principles will be moved to the body of the constitution. And the fifth one, using the addendum principle to amend the constitution. Yeah, because there are some question in amending the constitution. The original structure from the independence in 1945, there were only 16 chapters, 37 sections or articles, 49 subsection, and 4 articles of interim or transitory provision, and 2 subsection on additional provision, and as I already started, it has an elucidation. But under the new structures, when we finished the 4th Amendment in 2002, we have now a new constitution with 21 chapters, 73 sections or articles, and more than 3 times subsection now become 170, and then 3 new articles of interim and transitory provisions, and 2 new articles on additional provision, but now elucidation at all. I will jump because time limitation, because actually this PowerPoint is broad background of legal political dynamics during the constitutional amendment, but I will focus on the transparency institution. This is the original structure, original origin of our previous constitution. We have the state highest institution, which called People Consultative Assembly. If I am not mistaken, this position is like I saw in the former or in the current constitution of China, i.e. the National People Congress. Supreme Court, this is the Supreme Audit Board, House of Representatives, President, and the Supreme Advisory Council. But after the amendment, now the structure become like this. Yeah, there is no state highest institution. Even the People Consultative Assembly is only here. Yeah. And this is the Supreme Audit Board here. I will talk about this. And this President and Vice President, House of Representatives, People Consultative Assembly, Regional Representative Council. This is the Supreme Court, and we have a new Constitutional Court because of the amendment. And then we also have the new Judicial Commission here. And this is, you could find also other institutions will hold judicial power functions. And under the President, there are some state ministries, 34 now, Advisory Council, and then military and police here. And this is the Central Bank, and this is General Election Commission. This is the border between central and local government, the borderline. And in the region or provinces, we have 33 provinces now. We also have in the provincial level Supreme Audit Board. I saw in the draft of your Constituent Assembly, especially from the committee to decide on the structure of constitutional bodies, you also design like provincial or state level of Federal Supreme Audit Board. And then here under the president, this is the provincial level of the regional government, which consists of head of regional government, and this is the local or provincial level House of Representative, and then this is the one of the lowest level of the government. This is in the municipal or regency level of the government. So under the provinces, there are some corruption court, yeah, but not under this, but under Supreme Court also, but not under this line. And then, yeah, this is the idea of division or separation of power after the amendment. Yeah, this is the House of Representative. One of them, its main function, it shall have the power to make laws, and then the president shall hold the power of government. And then we now have two courts, yeah, first Constitutional Court and then the Supreme Court, which is the independent power to maintain a system of courts with the objective of upholding law and justice. I don't know. No. Yeah, I will go here. One of the transparency institution, as also stated in one of the draft of your Constituent Assembly, we have Supreme Audit Board. Yeah. According to Article 23F, Paragraph 1, it stated that the members of the Supreme Audit Board shall be chosen by the House of Representatives, which shall have regard to any consideration of the Regional Representative Council. Oh, smooth. Wait. Say again. No, page 44, I think. Okay. So the members of the Supreme Audit Board shall be chosen by the House of Representatives, which shall have regard to any consideration of the Regional Representative Council and will be formally appointed by the President. I don't know why it's moved. It's moved himself. Yeah. Okay, I will look mine. And then in the right side, it stated that the result of any examination of state finance shall be submitted to the House of Representatives, Regional Representative Council, or the Regional House of Representatives in line with their respective authority. Maybe this is the difference with your draft, because I read here that in your draft, especially on page 13, the title is Constituent Assembly, especially Committee to Decide on the Structure of Constitutional Bodies. You designed that the Federal Audit Commission shall submit to the President an annual report on the work of the office as performed, and the President through the Prime Minister shall make arrangement to submit such reports to the Legislature Parliament. This is our experience in the past. I mean, yeah, if I could share my experience, is not so good if we submit to the President. It's better if you could submit to the Legislature Parliament, and then Legislature Parliament could submit to the President, or the Federal Audit Commission submit the result together to the House and I mean to the Parliament and also to the President and the Prime Minister. Yeah. So this is the accountability here, to examine the management and accountability of state finance. Yeah, this is about the existence of single Supreme Audit Board. And the Supreme Audit Board shall be based in the capital city of the state and shall have representation in every province. So this is a match. And this is in the next page about the actually examination of state finance, as have been stated. This is for a primary job to examine the management and accountability of state finance. And then the result of any examination of state finance shall be submitted to Regional Representative Council. You could also access all the result, whether it's true or not, from the website of the Supreme Audit Board. So sometime we know that there is a corruption in this region, or just from that website. And then according to this, after this process, action following the result of any such examination will be taken by representative institution and or bodies according to the law. I mean, it depends on the level where the corruption happened. If it's on the region, so maybe you can talk with the regional with the regional House of Representative, and then to the regional police. Last year, we have 2 or 3 members out of 7 members come from political parties. Yeah. So I think I agree. You put here in your draft about the requirement that a person shall be eligible to be appointed as the chairperson. This is your draft. And a member of the Federal Audit Commission if he or she is not a member of any political party immediately before the appointment. Because they choose his friend in House of Representatives. That is happened in my country last year. And then the elected member will be appointed formally by the president. Yeah, president do nothing, only establishing a presidential decree administratively to appoint the member which already elected by the House. No, it covers many institutions. Yeah. According to your draft, the accounts of the Supreme Court, Legislature, Parliament, Constituent Assembly, Commission for the investigation of abuse of authority, Public Service Commission, Election Commission, National Human Rights Commission, Office of the Attorney General, and other officials of constitutional bodies, and the Nepal Army and Armed Police Force, Nepal Police, National Investigation Department, as well as all other government offices, courts, local bodies, government academic institution, and public institution shall be audited by Federal Audit Commission in the manner determined by law, with due consideration given to the regularity and so forth. So about the office, I think the representative in the provinces or state, it's a must. So I think the concept of the articles, but shall be, like here you drafted that in general there may be a branch of the Federal Audit Commission in every province or state. Yeah, I think it might shall be. I mean, I don't know how many provinces you have. And then also I have earlier comment that it's better you don't submit to the president first, but to the legislature, parliament first. That's on your draft. And I agree with that. If somebody will audit the Federal Audit Commission, it should come from independent auditor, because you only mention the auditing of the Federal Audit Commission shall be done by an auditor. Put some norms in the Constitution. I think it's better you make it stated clearly in every section, even it's the same. Like this, I think I don't agree if you mention like this: the chairperson and members of the Federal Audit Commission may be removed from their office on the same grounds and in the same manner as has been set out for removal of a judge of the Supreme Court. I think so. Yeah. So it will be consistent. I mean, consistent in putting the norm in the Constitution. Yeah, this is my experience as some inputs, because I also involve as expert staff in informal constitutional amendment in my country before, and from 1999 to 2002. Okay, because I get notice that I have no more time, so I think I have to finish on this part. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Satti Arinanto, for your excellent presentation. And you have brought Indonesian experience to the floor, and I appreciate your fresh comment on the primary draft of Nepalese Constitution. Thank you very much. And now I want to give the floor to Dr. Narayan Manandar for the comment. Sir, you have.
First thing, why I was invited to do a comment, that was a big question I had in mind when I came here, when I arrived here. Actually, I don't come from a legal background, or I'm not a student of international law. Simply student of management, I would say. I would prefer to say that I might have a difficulty dealing with some legal issues here. In spite of that, maybe the organizers have invited me, maybe because of my periodic writings on corruption and governance issues. I have been, since last 4 or 5 years, I have been into this field. And unfortunately, when I thought that it will be about corruption, things will come up here. And hardly one word or two appear here. But still, and it was quite a learning situation for me here. We had 2 presentations, quite an extreme presentation, I would say. One from United Kingdom, which Professor Paul made about the global, regional, be free from the evils of corruption is very much a human right issue. Then matter of how you arrange this governance, how you manage your state affair. So this is one issue I would like to draw attention, because people here are expert in constitutional experts. I think this idea has been missed. Even when I go through those listing of 31 fundamental rights that been proposed in this new constitution, when I went through the ideas collected, there is some mentioning of 1 or 2 people demanding good governance to be part of fundamental right. This should be included. That's one aspect, because having this anti-corruption, good governance as a fundamental right will very much dictate how we arrange our other state mechanism. Coming back specifically to about I also came here because former CIA Chief Commissioner was going to chair this session. Some time back, I had an opportunity to read his article about, maybe he was expressing his displeasure about the way the CIA is being proposed in the new constitution. So when I read that material, that was published in Republica maybe a couple of months back, I couldn't figure out. So I went back to the website and then see this draft on the proposed changes to be made in the new constitution. And then I figured out why he was so much dissatisfied with that. In the new provision, what it says that CIA can file a case only after approval, not an approval, some kind of suggestion from the Attorney General. Maybe this has been put in as a check and balance. In our present system, CIA can pursue legal and file a case on its own. With this new kind of check and balance, we have to rethink about, already there is accusation now that CIA is not performing to its level. So with this new kind of arrangement, that CIA had to have some kind of approval, some kind of suggestion from Attorney General prior to filing of case, may again retard our anti-corruption drive, which is already at the lower level. I would say there is no concern, no interest on anti-corruption drive in these countries. At least since last couple of years, I have been watching what is happening with this anti-corruption drive in Nepal. There is no interest, virtually no interest among the political players. This is reflected by since last 3 years. We have a situation where CIA, where there is no leadership within CIA. We have my friend, we've been talking outside this morning that we have come to a situation where we had from 5 commissioner to 4, 3. Now we have come to a situation having no commissioner at all, and now we have a situation having just 1 commissioner. So we have all this kind of experience there with the CIA. Another thing about this arrangement, beside the displeasure that Suryanath, former Chief Commissioner, mentioned in his article, is with this there is kind of conflict between these different kind of oversight mechanism. As for example, CIA can recommend to take departmental action, but CIA's the move to take departmental action has been thwarted by Public Service Commission, because all departmental action had to go through Public Service Commission. So there is kind of conflict within these oversight agencies. I don't know how much that idea has been conceived in the new provision. When I go through this new draft, it didn't give me much improvement from the past. It was just trying to copy what's being mentioned there with slight changes, like the approval of the Attorney General, having a federal, with already the gentleman there has mentioned about just having a 3 commissioner, and with maybe when I had a discussion with one of the MP who was involved with the committee, she told me that with the coming of this provincial CIAA, there will be many commissioners. Maybe they were driven by budget constraint to determine this 3 commissioner. So this is on an overall, I see that there is not much inputs gone into the recommendation with regards particularly to the CIA, the constitutionally mandated anti-corruption agency in Nepal. There is not much thinking, not much inputs gone into that. I'm very much dissatisfied with that. With this, I think I will stop my comments here. Okay.
I thank Dr. Narayan Maninder for his comment, and now I want to give time to Mr. Ashish Thapar.
Thank you, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be commenting on what has been discussed here this morning. 2 papers by Professor Flodman and Professor Arihanto. As my friend has just said, presentation on different aspects and different ways how things have been done in different countries. Well, Professor Flodman highlighted the importance of international law in the constitution making process in Nepal. Well, I would like to share some information with you that probably Nepal could be one country where this constitution making exercise has been going on for quite some time now. From 1990, we are now in the process of, within 20 years, about to frame a third constitution. So, so this exercise has been taking place in Nepal, and the constitution that we've had from 1990 to the interim constitution and to probably the new constitution that we'll have, I think we will not deviate that much from the point of view of international law and human